This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story? Welcome to a bonus episode of A Life in Film. Are you a fan of the White Lotus? Well, join us today as we talk to some of the cast, including Aimee Lou Wood, Julian Kostov, and Jason Isaacs.
At the end of the week, you will be an entirely different person.
What happens in Thailand stays in Thailand.
Amen.
Amen.
I think when I was a kid, now looking back at it, it makes sense, but going through it didn't make sense to me, and certainly didn't make sense to anybody in my household, because my mom is this, Supreme Judicial Court judge, and a criminal judge. My dad has a logistics business, and so it was and none of my grandparents or uncles or anybody is remotely artistic. So it was, well, my grandma is, she's a diva, but nobody worked it for a living. So it wasn't obvious to any of us that I am creative and I could be an artist. I always thought myself I was good at math. So I thought, I'm very rigid thinking and all that stuff. And I should probably, go into business like my dad. And, he's created something for himself, in the 90s in Bulgaria, the change of regime. And he had to earn his own thing and make his own company. So I thought I'd be doing that. But, I started studying business management in Holland, in the Netherlands, when I was 19, right after high school, and I felt depressed, and I didn't leave my room in this small town called Tilburg, and it was pretty depressing. And I just watched movies over and over again, and I watched The Dark Knight a gazillion times so I could learn Heath Ledger's Joker monologues. And then one day I was like, let's just film it. We didn't have selfie cameras back then. I don't know how old you are. You're probably much younger than me, but we did.
We're a similar age, to be fair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in fact, you're young. I'm 1987. You're 1987.
Oh, damn. Well,
Yeah.
Look at us looking great. Yeah, 1989. And so I was doing the Joker monologue, and I was looking at it. I was like, damn, I'm pretty good at this. And I had the idea for the first time that being an actor could be something I could attempt, that it's a real profession that people do. And it never occurred to me because as I was growing up, I was obsessed with American cinema. And so sci-fi especially, so Star Wars to fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and The Matrix and Gladiator and all these epic movies. And, I didn't see any Bulgarians or Eastern Europeans being leads or even in those series, so in those movies. So I never kind of thought about it. I loved it, but I never thought about doing it. Or that it was a plausible career choice for a Bulgarian boy. And that went through my head, of course, when I was in Holland, when I did the Heath Ledger stuff. And I was like, well, it's okay. I'll have to be the first one, I suppose, if I even attempt that. But honestly, it was more about, and I think naivete is my one superpower that I have, is well, let's just try it. Let's do it. I think I always just wanted to explore it. See if I like it, because my mom at the time gave me this advice, and I'll always be super grateful for obviously everything she's done for me, but especially for that moment, because she said choosing a profession is critical to your happiness and well-being, because people spend 70% of their conscious life working, and if you hate what you do, you're going to bring it over to your family, into your personal life, into your relationships, your kids, etc. So be very careful with what you choose, and choose something you love. She's like, I love my profession. I love, and that's, I think I have this sense of justice from her. And so to which my dad said, why did you tell him that? He's a man. He should support a family. He needs to earn money. So, but he's since been also very supportive. But that just initial belief, because nobody really believed in my dream. I don't, in the beginning, in the first few years, even when I was already booking some stuff, my dad, every time I went back home to Bulgaria, my dad was like, so when are you dropping this hobby and coming to work for the family business? And I was like, I'm never, Dad, never going to do it. Until one day.
Sometimes you need someone to be like, come on, this isn't possible. And it drives you even more, pushes you even more.
It's true. And I was like, I'll do it. in spite of that, in spite of you, to prove you that you're wrong. So that, but thinking back, I always loved singing, performing. I always like played with my toys and directed little plays with them. I made lightsabers out of carton and like sticks that I wrapped in carton, and I painted red or blue, and I would invite my friends over to fight until my mom threw them out at 17, and she said I should start dating instead of just playing with the boys. So yeah, I grew up very, nerdy and wanting to kind of, even writing stories and stuff like that. But I just kind of, because I was a professional swimmer, I think it was all academia swimming. Yeah, I had no time for a hobby really, or like, I would sing like Robbie Williams, belting Always or Feel. Sorry, Always by Bon Jovi, but either Feel or Angels, and I'd be like, I just wanna feel. And my parents from the other room would be like, shut up, we're trying to watch a movie here. So but now, I have this new hobby that I started rapping and releasing my own music, which has been very fun. Yeah.
That's you acting, swimming, and rapping. Like you mean that's pretty diverse. What a selection. Hopefully you can use this, maybe the swimming and the rapping at some point in a role as well, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I did, but I'll tell you about it.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you now, but
we'll get onto it. We'll get onto it. That's interesting. So you obviously very into films growing up, but it sounds like your parents were as well, because you were saying was watching movies and what kind of, I mean, you mentioned there obviously like Lord of the Rings, The Dark Knight and things like that. I mean, earlier on when you were like a child, sort of in the early 90s, was there any sort of films do you remember a moment where you were like, wow, this film is something, and it really affected you?
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting in the 90s because we would get the pirate tapes before we would get the movies in the cinema. So I had already watched Lion King for like 50 times before I watched it in the cinema. And it was so different because it was one woman voicing all the lines in Bulgarian with a delay.
Oh, wow.
And I knew what was being said because I was like 5 or 6. And so we went to the cinema with my mom, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And to this day, this is my favorite movie of all time, is Lion King.
Wow, it's a good one, to be honest.
Yeah, because it's Hamlet. It's Hamlet with lions. What can go wrong?
I realized when I found that out, it blew my mind. I was like, it's wrapped in such a different thing that you just don't together.
You're like, oh, this is Shakespeare. Great. That's why it's timeless and amazing, and it's with lions, so it's even better. Because Denmark's pretty grim in terms of weather. But I think the other one for sure that like got me into cinema or like I was like so impressed was Jurassic Park.
Oh man, yeah.
And I watched that with my mom again in the cinema, and I was like scared shitless, but also like very into it. And I loved dinosaurs at the time. I still do. And me and my girlfriend actually we were just in LA for the White Lotus premiere, and we went to the Universal lot and we saw the Jurassic World like ride. I don't know if you've been on it.
Yes, yeah.
Blew my mind. I was like 5 again, all over again. And it's this and Star Wars and Devil's Advocate and Gladiator and The Matrix. I've seen The Matrix probably more than any other movie in the world.
The Matrix is one of those movies that at the time people were reading the script being like, I don't know if I get this. And there were so many people turned it down, and now people look back on it and they're like,
Will Smith.
Yeah. So many people, and you just think, oh man, it's one of the most iconic movies ever made.
Yeah. I've watched Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Lawrence Fishburne. I don't know if you've seen that.
What's it called?
Star Talk. It's Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast, and he invited Lawrence Fishburne, and they discussed The Matrix for 45 minutes. I was like, this is gold. But Lawrence Fishburne, apparently there was this one person who was financing The Matrix, who was responsible for getting the money and selling it to the studio. So he was going around pitching it, and none of the studios were getting it. And the guy was like, yeah, don't worry. Nobody under the age of 30 gets this script. So that's what they said. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
God, imagine trying to pitch The Matrix though when The Matrix wasn't a thing. It's kind of it would be a hard sell, I can imagine. But it's crazy. It's one of those films that's just iconic, and you think about there's so many choices they had to cast it, but Keanu Reeves is just he is that
Yeah, he's
character, he is.
forever.
But then no, it's really interesting, man. And I mean, it's funny you mentioned Jurassic Park. That's like one of the ones like a milestone movie for me as well. But
Yeah.
you were lucky because I wasn't allowed to go to the cinema to watch it. You got to see it on the big screen. I had to watch it.
There was zero regulation in Bulgaria in the 90s. You could take
I was too short, and I was older than you as well. Still couldn't get in.
Oh no, it was a height thing.
Yeah.
Oh, another one that my grandparents would leave me alone, probably age of 7 or 8 and 9. They would just go and visit their friends, and I loved it because I knew where my granddad kept his stash of tapes. So I would pull out The Predator and like watch it on my own. And I've seen The Predator so many times. Every time, like I'm just, oh my god, so scary. But like this masochism in me was like, I need to watch it again.
It's a different time, isn't it? Like back in the day, the sort of late 80s, early 90s, with films like Predator and these things that they made toys for those films for kids, but yet they were 18. It's like it was just a different time. Like now that we're just
they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, my cat's just barged in. I didn't realize he was in here. Yeah, I mean that is again, Predator is another one of those sort of iconic movies. And is there something like that where, in fact, I'm going to compare you to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just bear with me. But
yes,
obviously,
I know where you're going with this.
Hang on, I'm going to move the cat.
This has to be in it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, sorry, I was saying that Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of those guys. You kind of mentioned that thing. You're not from the same area, the same place, but everyone was telling him no, and there was no example of him on the screen, and he had to be the first to be on, be that guy. So I kind of feel like you're the equivalent. You've broken through and on your way. But is there anyone like that you've looked up to, a fellow actor? Obviously, you mentioned Heath Ledger with The Dark Knight earlier on, but any like actor that really kind of went, I want to do that.
I think there's so many that I adore. And some of them I mentioned, but I think Heath Ledger was really, I had a very strong connection for some reason to him. And when he died, I actually, maybe I was just young, I don't know, but I cried a lot. Same with Paul Walker, and I think it was them and obviously Pacino, De Niro, and Orlando Bloom, because people told me I looked like him when I was younger.
I can see it.
And Colin Farrell, for the same reason, just like people you're getting compared to sometimes, and like the De Niro thing. I mean, come on, all right, cool. So it's and Denzel Washington and so many other actors, but I think now. I don't know about then specifically, except for Heath Ledger probably, but for now, in terms of a career that I want to have, I would model it. The closest person to model it to is probably Ryan Reynolds in what he's doing with business and his other interests. And, I have that too. I'm producing, I'm writing, I'm directing. I have a music, hobby career, whatever you want to call it. Or used to organize workshops, used to like run kind of have help other people like from my region establish themselves abroad. Similarly, the biggest case is Maria Bakalova, who ended up earning an Oscar nomination. And this is all like me systematically helping other Bulgarian actors because I don't believe in competition when it comes to acting. And I think I'd rather open the opportunities for even a role that I'm casting for. I would also like send it to my buddies and like literally have direct competition and help them out with their tape, because I'd rather be them than somebody I don't know. Or I'd rather, if it's an Eastern European part, I'd rather be them than a American or English actor or whatever. So I think the right role finds you, and it's all about your essence and the right time. We're all very lucky to be getting roles to begin with. You know what I mean? And every time you get the next role, it's a shock. And you're like, really? You hired me again? But also every audition I send in, I'm like, that's they should hire me for that. That was so great. So it's a big juxtaposition of your, you know, of you love to do it, and it's your ego, and you want to help others. And I forgot the question, but yeah.
No, I feel like you mentioned there the auditions and doing
Mhm.
tapes, and sometimes it can feel like you're kind of throwing things into the ether and you just don't know what's going to come from it. But the fact
Yeah,
that you're doing the tapes and you go, no, that was good. Like I've put time and effort into that, and that
yeah.
meant it to be. Um, do you prefer being in the room or as tapes? I mean, with tapes you get a bit more time, but then it's kind of
Yeah.
both.
I've, since the pandemic, I've been in the room once, I think. And
Mm.
it was, I was like, for a couple of years, I hadn't been in the room, and I was like, I don't want to do it. I'll do it on my own, much better. I'll do the tape for, and then I was like, let's just, my agent, Tom, was like insistent, you should go in the room. I'm like, okay, I'll go in the room. Because I'm really good in the room too, but I hadn't done it for a long time. So I was very nervous. So I think there's a positive and a negative side to just self-taping all the time, because we really we all have, we all each have our taste
Mm.
and in what we subconsciously believe it should be like, or how we think we should be like. And when you have this opportunity to watch yourself over and over again and, change something, or, you have the time to get very like pedantic, which is not a good thing, and very perfectionist, which is a horrible thing. So, I like the room though, but it's been a while. I actually have one audition a couple of next week that's a screen test. So I'm like, all right, that's gonna be cool. I haven't done that.
That I mean that yeah, anything that you don't do regularly, it's always going to be a bit nerve-wracking, but it feels because I'm an actor myself, going
Mm-hmm.
in the room always feels like you could do a great audition, but then you've also got to come across well, and it's
Mm.
there's a
Trying too hard or not
yeah,
trying to.
like it's the balancing act, but I think that is it's a bit more of a gamble, but I
Mhm.
prefer it because you get your opportunity to shine and to sort of
Yeah,
communicate with that person in real life.
yeah.
Whereas
I teach actors here sometimes. I do these intensives when I can to kind of give back to my people, and so I teach these specifically casting workshops and audition technique. And I always tell them what I've learned is that part of the job is the acting and you being the right fit and all that stuff, but also don't forget the casting directors speak to the producers directly and to the directors.
mm,
So you should try and present your personality in the most natural way, because people want to know that they can work with you and that you'll be cool on set, not some kind of method actor that comes in and pretends he's Jack the Ripper from the door. There's things you shouldn't do and things you should avoid. For example, there's a little hack that instead of sorry, you should say it would be helpful if.
mm,
So sorry, can we do it again? It would be helpful if we start again.
mm,
So because people want to help others generally, so they're like, oh, of course, yeah, yeah. It would be helpful if you pause here before you say this next line, because then I can make this reaction.
mm.
Um, so um, there are things that can work in your favor for sure if you're comfortable with that, because people want to see your personality, that how you're going to be on set basically as well, and that gets transmitted to the team too.
I love that you do all these other things outside of acting to sort of it all kind of works together in a way, doesn't it? How
Yeah,
did
yeah.
that come about? How did you start kind of getting involved with, doing these classes and producing and writing for
Yeah. Well, it came from not having enough opportunities when the way it always happens, I think, because as a Bulgarian actor in London, it's a hard city to survive anyway, let alone as an actor, let alone as a Bulgarian actor. So I was doing odd jobs and doing cast and director workshops. And then one day I was like, I can do a better cast and director workshops than most of these companies are doing. So I started, and I was like, and the cast and director, I will make money for the cast and director, and then they'll love me because of it, and they'll know me and they'll start seeing me for stuff. So that's kind of how it started. I founded my company, Jupiter Lights Productions, in the UK in 2014. And I started organizing workshops. Then I brought my studio that I was training at, Aimee, to Bulgaria a few times, and That kind of, I started doing casting director workshops with Nancy Bishop exclusively. And so then every time she would need to cast a wider net in Bulgaria, since there was no infrastructure in Bulgaria, nobody for her to reach out to, she knew I was a Bulgarian guy. So she would like ask me if I can help her out with some auditions, and I would always do it because I believe in the cause and you know, the representation and all that stuff. So and so yeah, I just opened up opportunity, and that's how the Maria Bakalova thing happened too, because Nancy was like, we're looking for a lead Eastern European for a big Hollywood movie. She didn't even know what it was, that it was Borat and that it was Sacha Baron Cohen. I was like, you got it. And I was living in LA at the time, and in 3 days I had auditioned 60 Bulgarian actresses, self-tapes, and I had sent it on to her. And then, you know, she selected Maria and you know, a few others and sent it over, and then the rest was it's history. It's a long story, but it worked out.
Easy, man. That's great though.
Yeah.
That's like such a nice. It's a way of what it all kind of works together, and it reminds me a little bit of, you know, why I started this podcast, because you get to sort of connect with people in a different way, in a way that you wouldn't necessarily if you're just going into an audition. You know, you're meeting a casting director, you're getting maybe 10 minutes with them.
Yeah.
You know, with this, sometimes I get 45 minutes with the casting director, and it's like that's amazing. That's a great experience, and you learn a lot from that. So I appreciate that you know, that's cool.
That was my way of, you know, and similarly with writing and producing, I made a short film in 2015 because I wanted to show off my American accent, because nobody was giving me, well, I had some opportunities actually. I lie. Aimee Hubbard cast me in 24. So I had a scene with Kiefer Sutherland, which was cool. A couple. Yeah, he punches me out. He Jack Bowers me. And so, but you know, I wanted to create something, you know, comedy slash, you know, wearing a suit. So we did the short film called Early Bird. So that was my first experience, like co-writing, producing. And then, you know, after I produced The Dare, which was a feature film, $1 million budget. We shot it in Bulgaria. I cast it with the director. And then a bunch of short films. So I'm just helping out people whenever they can, either with, you know, because I know a lot of actors and internationally. So I'm like, you know, maybe that person will be good for your short film. It's something they haven't done, and I know they want to do something like that. So, you know, I've helped with stuff like that. Or, for example, now, one of my songs, I dropped my song in December, and then it's called Groundhog Day, and it's very introspective and about, you know, reliving the same day or the same date, or like hurting yourself in the same way over and over again until you decide to break the cycle. And so this one person reached out to me, and they were like, I loved your song. Can I use it in my credits, in my end credits on the movie? I was like, let me see the movie. And then I watched it. I liked it. I was like, yeah, you can have the song. He's like, okay, we'll make you a co-producer. I'm like, fine. Sure. So as you say, it's in a weird way, it all kind of spirals into myself, and like kind of works its magic in ways that I couldn't have predicted, you know?
Yeah, no, that's great, man. Just as you know, you casually mentioned Kiefer Sutherland and getting, you know, punched by him. Out of interest, what was that experience like? I mean, he's an icon, really, and it must be nerve-wracking to be on set with someone like that.
It was my first. I had done 2 or 3 movies in Bulgaria, playing an American in Bulgarian, well, American movies shooting here kind of thing, but they were like B zombie movie or like something like that, or like sci-fi channel movies. And then going back to the UK, getting an agent on the back of a big Star Wars audition, which I went like final rounds, but on the back, didn't get it obviously, but on the back of that, I got my then agent. And they had got me in to do this. And I've been watching the series 24 with my dad for like a decade. And we were like fans of it. And I was like, I can't believe that I'm about to be in the show that I love, that I watched with my dad, and like want to be working with this guy. So when I got it, it was nerve wracking. The entire Pall Mall, like the mall was like locked off, and they had these like hundreds, I think, like hundreds of trailers And I had my own, and they picked me up in a Bentley, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I only had like 2 lines, whatever. But I was like, God damn it. And then I went on set, was super nervous. All of a sudden I didn't know that, but they throw stuff at you and they're like, oh, improvise and like frisk the lead actress and then nod at Kiefer and like do this thing. And so from one line, I ended up having a whole thing to do. And then the director showed me what to do. But then Kiefer was like, no, grab her. Just really grab her, smash her on the car and like frisk her. I'm like 24 years old. I'm like, Yvonne Strahovski, this like amazing actress from Dexter. And she's like, yeah, rough me up. I don't mind it. I'm like, okay. But then I had to, I had to do it. And I was like, I realized at the time that they need me to be on their level as an actor, just with a smaller part. Just for these 10 seconds, I need to be as good as Kiefer and Yvonne and everybody else. So that was a big lesson in reframing. Like, I'm not nobody here. I'm equally talented for what I've been cast as these other people. So I'm part of this project. That gave me a little bit of confidence. I started breathing deeply and I was like, okay, I belong here. Stop with this imposter syndrome. Just do what they said. You can do this. It's not a hard, when you think about it, it's not that hard, but you're petrified with fear sometimes on set. And I feel like some of that never goes away. Like you always want to, so the happiest time is when you book the job and then you're like, oh shit, I have to actually go and do the work now and not suck. And it's the same with everything else. Like you sort of, with every other job, you're like, yeah, I need to do the first take for me to relax and be like, okay, I'll be fine. I'll be good. I'll know my lines. And it's my biggest fear. I've never had a problem, but I always fear not knowing my lines.
It's almost like the dream of, being on stage naked. It's that thing.
Yeah.
To get my lines.
Yeah.
But hopefully that never, touch wood, ever happens.
Touch wood, man.
It's always one of those things you're thinking, oh God, what if? We'll be back to the episode shortly. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now. Please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life in Film Pod. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. This podcast is sponsored by Betterhelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9-to-5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with Betterhelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, Betterhelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, Betterhelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. And back to the show. But to go forward and chat about, obviously latest projects, and White Lotus is obviously on season 3 now. I've really enjoyed the first 2 seasons. What is there that you can sort of tell us about your character without telling us about your character? With no spoilers, just for the audience that haven't seen the show, just to give them a little insight.
Well, I can say that he goes wild around episode 5. And he's like one of those, I feel like, because there's 3 Russian characters. It's myself, Arnis Fedorovicius, and Yuri Kolokolnikov. And we come in and it's sort of like, they're like magical characters, I feel. They're very different from everything else. They stick out. And as you'll learn next episode, they like to party. And and it's in the trailer that I'm dirty dancing with Michelle Monaghan's character, and so it's a wild episode 5. I think he brings this kind of danger and chaos and rawness and unpredictability, if I do say so myself. But it's I think it was so easy to connect with Carrie Coon and Leslie Bibb and Michelle Monaghan's characters, and with them as people, also with the characters, because of that. Because on day 5 of the entire shoot, they had been shooting for 4 days, the 3 girls, and then we come in for the tail end scenes of what happens in episode 5. So we had to create these entire relationships and figure out where the night is at, so we can then top that. And then of course we shot the rest of the scenes 3 months later, as you do. But they were so easygoing and friendly, and very open and welcoming, and it was so easy, especially with the 3 of them. Like, it was so easy to work with them. With the boys, we had a bit of time to connect in the days before. We were trying to hang out as much as possible, so we created this bond between the 3 of us, because we're supposed to be lifelong friends. But I'll tell you, and I'll tell the audience that, the viewers and listeners, that there is a twist to him. He's not just a fun guy, a fun, crazy guy. So you'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's good. You've alluded to what happens, but not given it completely away, which is good. With this series, I mean, White Lotus is always, you never really know where it's going to go, and there's always a lot of different characters that have a lot of different agendas. And this is this is the same sort of thing, and the cast is incredible.
They're amazing. I've never seen a show where everybody is a standout. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it really is. And it's kind of, every season they seem to sort of top it. It always seems to get better.
This one is for sure my favorite season, and not because I'm in it. I'm watching it as a fan, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
and it's the longest.
Partially because I watch it and go, oh, I wish I was there. Although I'm sure I won't think that by the end of the season. I'm sure there'll be reasons to not want to be there. But in terms of the location, how long were you away, and how was it? I'm presuming it was actually shot in Thailand.
Yeah, all of it is shot in Thailand. I was there in and out, like probably spent a month and a bit, maybe month and a half in total, maybe more. But we were there for the first 2 weeks of production, me and my girlfriend, and then I kept coming in and out. And then for 2 or 3 weeks towards like the end, we had rain, so we had to change stuff, so we had to come back again. Thailand is incredible. Everybody has to go there. I feel at least once in their life. I had never been before. And of course I experienced it in a different way than most people would, because I experienced the White Lotus way, and having the dream job, and like, you're pinching yourself constantly, like, but being in the 4 seasons in Koh Samui. But even outside of that, I traveled a lot. I went to all like possible kind of quick tourist destinations by boat, and like all the nearby islands, and going to elephant sanctuaries and like bathing an elephant is something I did not think I was going to do in this lifetime. But a lot of these things were, funnily, I saw, we went to the sanctuary, and you go and take a picture with the elephant. And this small child was, 9 years old, was taking a picture with the elephant. The elephant just went and kicked him. I'm like, what? Oh. The elephant is so agile, actually. Just went up, kicked it to the side. A little bit. Like, the kid was fine.
Different in Thailand.
Yeah, maybe if you're big on health and safety. No, it was great. People are incredible, very friendly, but in a very genuine way. I think they have, somebody told me they have 30 different ways to smile. which is, you even smile to say no. Like there's a way to smile to say no.
No.
So, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, the food is incredible. Just Thailand is a remarkable place, and there's something for everybody. Obviously, it's notorious for something, very famous for others, but it's really everything in one place, and just the food and fruit and everything is incredible. Yeah.
Well, I'm extremely jealous, and I'll be watching the show wishing it was me in Thailand.
Most embarrassing moments, yeah.
I actually forgot my lines once. Yes. Now that you say it, on the third film I ever did, I only had like 2 lines, and I knew them very well. But the shoot, we were supposed to start. It was the last day of the shoot. The scene that I was supposed to do was supposed to be first up at like 12 at night, but then they decided to put it for last at 6 a.m. in the morning. So I was in every other scene as like the bodyguard of the bad guy. So I was like walking behind him and like trying to listen and react to everything, overreact to everything probably at the time. And when it came to my scene, I'm supposed to like pull up my gun, and there's the entire NATO army coming down an escalator, and I'm supposed to be like, "That's far enough, Colonel. You have no authority to enter this facility," something like that. But because I was so tired and my mouth was just like not working anymore, and the guy started, I swear, I don't know if he did it, but I swear to God, I thought the guy was laughing at me, like smiling at me on purpose, like just to f me up. The other actor in the scene. And I was like, I was like, and he's just like making faces, but the camera's on me. And I'm like, "That's far enough, Colonel." And that's guard down, burn. Oh God. "That's far enough, Colonel. You have no facility to enter." Oh my God. So this happened on and on for like 7 or 8 takes. I just was like, if this is acting, I don't want to do it anymore. It was like the worst experience. I was about to quit, honestly. And then the Star Wars audition turned me back into acting and got me to move back to London and all that. But it was so embarrassing. And the director who had given me the role, he's like, "Come on, bro." Like,
everything okay?
It's just work stuff. We're not supposed to tell my family. We're poor now, and Daddy's going to prison. I'm from Liverpool, a very working class family. We just watched telly. It's all we did was sit around. The whole family would sit on the couch and watch telly all night, every night. We went to the pantomime once a year, and we did theatre and things. I went to university. We moved to London, and I went to school, and I went to university. And I was so completely out of my social milieu. You're British, I was so out of my class. There were all these people from these very public schools who all dressed the same, looked the same, talked the same, and just had an ease in the world that I was so alien to me. And I did that thing I'd always done in my life, was try and fit in with them, try and talk like them, try and fool them into thinking I was of them, which I obviously wasn't. About 2 weeks into university, maybe less, I was staggering around the Student Union building, drunk, as I always was, drunk or stoned, on subsidized beer, which is like nothing per pint. And there was a sign on a wall saying, "Audition, can you do a Northern accent?" And the one thing I knew I could do authentically, because everything about me was fake at that point, was a Northern accent. I went in and auditioned for a play, and they cast me, and I just fell madly in love with the rehearsal room, because it was a place where it didn't matter where you came from. I didn't need to be self-conscious about my accent or my background or my slightly vulgar Northwest London origins or about being Jewish, because it was a place where you were stripped away of all that stuff. You were neutral, supposedly, and trying to have conversations about the most important things in life. Who are we? What are we? Why? What makes me upset, angry, jealous, hateful? And act these things out. And in the process of acting them out in the rehearsal room, you find out a lot about yourself, because you're walking in other people's shoes and thoughts and feelings. So I did that, and that's why they did. I'm a character also of extremes and an ex-addict and stuff. And I thought, well, this is good. I'm going to keep doing this. And I did play after play after play after play. I went to the Edinburgh Festival a lot and the Fringe at Christmas in London. I was doing a law degree, but this was the thing I did.
Oh wow!
That meant I didn't have to try and chat to people at parties. I had something to do, and I loved doing it. And when it came time to leave university, some of my contemporaries were applying for drama school, which seemed to me the most ludicrous thing I'd ever heard of. I mean, I did it for a hobby as a student, but I played football as well. And I wasn't going to, write to Liverpool or Man United, see if I could have a trial. It just seemed, what were they thinking that they might go into this world of aliens who did storytelling for a living? But I think it was only like a £5 to audition or something, £5. And I'm quite competitive. And it was a day out in London. And so I went to audition for drama school, never thinking for a split second that I would go, because I didn't know what that was. An arts professional. That seemed bonkers to me. Didn't know, still didn't know anyone who took it seriously enough. And these other students I thought were just mad. Anyway, I auditioned, and I did the second audition, and I thought if I was really lucky, I'd get a letter. I put it on the wall of my chambers as a barrister or something, or my grandchildren would discover it in the attic in a trunk and go, "Granddad, did you get into drama school one day?" That's not what happened. This very tall woman came out of the in Central. Her name's Jane Cowell. She was a brilliant voice coach, but she sounded like Julie Andrews. And she said, "Well, we'd very much like to offer you a place in September." And I went, "Right." I was completely sideswiped. And she went, "I hope you're not fucking us around, young man. You do know that these places are very hard to come by." And I said, "No. That will be amazing." I was just, I can't believe it. Fantastic. And I so distinctly, I have a very poor memory, but I so distinctly remember walking down the street in Swiss Cottage in North London thinking, I've just decided the course maybe of the rest of my life. And I don't know if it's because it's what I want or because a very posh lady said to me. I was frightened of her.
Well, it's worked out well, so.
Yeah, 40 years later, I'm still not sure what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Everyone comes to Thailand, they're either hiding from someone or they're looking for someone.
I think the cosmos brought us together.
I'm gonna help you bring your joy back.
Oh, hey, slow down, dick.
I loved writing, and I always wrote stories and plays, and I was very shy, apart from when I was kind of like, I would like perform for my mum, but I was extremely shy kind of with anyone else. And to help me with my confidence, there was this youth theatre that mum thought would be great for me to go to help me build up that confidence of being able to talk to other people and just like make friends. And we like auditioned for, there was one time that we all had to audition for Annie, to play Annie, and I was practicing at home with my mum, and my mum was saying, you could, if you get up and do this, you'll get that part, and then it would get there on the day, and all the girls are standing up to audition, and I'm like, come on. And I just couldn't do it. It was just like this shyness was just such a big, it felt like this, it was so annoying, because it was like, what is this thing? Like, why can I not just do what I did at home now in this room? Like, why am I so afraid? Looking back, I'm like, why was I so afraid of like failing and of judgment at such a young age? Especially that, I think that's also tied to like being bullied and things like that. But like, it just felt really hard, because I had this kind of like private world in which I was this person who would do all these voices and impressions and like tell these stories, and then I just couldn't bring that out into the world. And then when I started secondary school, I really was struggling, and I had this amazing teacher called Mrs. Petrie, and I would just spend a lot of time with her. And when it was one-on-one, she would see all this, she would see this side of me, and she was like, if you could just kind of bring some of this into, be confident in bringing some of this into, with your friends, with the people at school, because I didn't really have any friends at that point, but, with your classmates and everything, but I just felt like I couldn't. And then one day she was like, we're going to do a drama class instead of an an English class, and I was like, oh my God. And she was looking at me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And we played a game called freeze tag, where you like do a scene and then you freeze someone and then you step in, you tap someone out and you step in as a new character. And I remember just sitting there, and it was literally like, I can remember the feeling of like my life being at a crossroads. And I was like, I either don't say freeze or I do say freeze. And and I knew that things were gonna, because this class of people had barely heard me say one word, right? So then I watching this thing and I go, and I looked at Mrs. Petrie, and she's like, she's giving me this look of encouragement, and I just went, freeze. And everyone was like, what the hell? We've not heard this girl speak. And then I got in and I did like this funny Father Christmas character who was like stuck up the chimney and was like, a bit kind of blokey and a bit, and everyone just found it so funny. And then
Wow.
I was, oh my God. And then, to be honest, it was like the best thing, because then all of a sudden I had friends, and I had like drama club, and I had this community, and I had belonging. But at the same time, it then went to the other extreme where, I was kicked out of lessons for being disruptive. I was the class clown. So I went from like the most meek to like, you could not shut me up. So it was like, I went from one extreme to another. I now think I'm finding, as I've matured, I'm finding that middle ground between, I don't have to be the person, I don't have to be the loudest in the room to feel safe, because that was my protective shield as well. I'm fun, the funniness and the acting, it was all my protective stuff. And I don't also have to be the quietest. I can be somewhere that's true to me. But
that's great. You can access both. You can, depending on what room you're in and who you're around, you can kind of access either one.
Yeah.
That's such a nice story, though. It's lovely. Was that at the moment then? Do you reckon that was like a pivotal moment where it was like that changed your mindset?
It did. And I think that the real huge change was then when I did Guys and Dolls and I played Adelaide, and I think I was 16, and I'd never, because I was still shy on the inside, but I was just dealing with it in a different way. And I had to audition with a song, and I just was like, it was one of those big fears, I was like, I can't sing, I can't. And then I auditioned and I got this part. And then after that, a lot of the kind of mums were coming over to me and being like, you need to go to drama school. You actually should do this as a thing. And I remember that being like, what? Like, that was kind of a bit weird, because even though I loved it, I'd never thought of it being my job. I thought, I kind of was like, I still wanted to be a writer and all that, but I never thought that I would actually do it as a job. I just kind of saw it as a way to express myself when I couldn't, in other ways. So, but then, after that, I was like, oh, maybe just hearing this and from teachers, and, my school wasn't very drama led. So to have like certain teachers who were in a kind of very academic school being like, you should do this, was quite like, oh, okay. So I think it was probably Guys and Dolls that was when I went into, I could actually do this with my life.
And then to actually, you've obviously gone from, you went to RADA straight away. That's a great, smashed it, be able to do that, and then going straight in. I mean, pretty immediately, going into sex education was, fairly quickly after you left drama school, was it?
It was. I did a tour of a play, People, Places and Things, which was so fun. It was the perfect first job, like a tour. You just get to, it's just so fun. And then I kind of had a lot of I was doing a lot of self-tapes and a lot of auditions, and kind of, getting to a certain point and then never getting further than it. And then I got sex education through, and I was like, oh God, I just felt this immediate connection to it. But it wasn't, it's weird because it's so funny when people talk about it, because they're like, you kind of went RADA then sex education, and I can completely understand why it looks that way. But I always find it so like amazing. My perspective is so different, because obviously I was sending off so many self-tapes, so many, going to so many auditions, and it all just disappearing into the ether. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm like,
yeah.
Sex Education felt like kind of the 100th, probably more thing that I'd done, that I'd auditioned for. But the space of time seems so short. And so it's like, whoa, but actually like it was one in many auditions that I'd done. So yeah, I always kind of like to tell people that, because I think that it can look different what the reality is, which is like, you went to RADA and then boom straight. But also, I didn't get in. I went to Oxford School of Drama for a foundation course first, straight from school, and then to try and like see if I actually wanted to do that, to go to drama school. And then I didn't get in that first year trying to any drama school after the foundation course. And then it was the year after that I got into RADA, and I did, and then that RADA was like the one place I got into out of several. So it's also subjective, isn't it? And it's so, it's so, and I think that sometimes on paper it can look very different to like the real, the real thing. But it has been amazing, and I have been very, very lucky.
I mean, actors are they're kind of like ducks in a way. They can look graceful above the surface, but underneath their legs are flapping, because there's all the work that people don't see, all the auditions, as you say, and a lot of the people that I have on here, like, I like to chat about those moments in between jobs. And even the biggest of actors, people that have been doing it for years, they're still worrying about not working, and they're spending their time learning accents or riding a horse or doing all the new skills and all these things. And you think, God, actually, most people don't even think about all that other stuff that actors are doing behind the scenes before they even get the job.
Most embarrassing moments,
Would not believe how many of those I have. Like, oh my God. Like, some that I would not ever say because they are just mortifying. But if I can, there was one audition that I went to for a part that I really, really, really wanted. And I think that I'd built it up so much in my head that I think it was like the 4th time I'd gone in the room for this part, right? And I don't play the guitar, but I had to learn over Christmas how to play one song, very simple song on the guitar.
Wow.
It was House of the Rising Sun, just the chords, right? And I spent every day. I also have, this is a fun fact about me, weirdly small hands. Like, my hands stopped growing from like the age of 10. You'll notice that now. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But so it was already quite hard. I found playing the guitar really hard with my weirdly small hands, right? But I was absolutely just drilling it every day of Christmas. Went in the room, and honestly, after the writer was in there, quite a famous actor was in there that I was doing like a chemistry read with, that everyone was there, the director, and I'm playing this song, and I just absolutely lose grip of it, and I go wrong every moment, and after every time going wrong, I would swear, right? I would be like, fuck shit. I just lost my mind, right? And then the thing, like the little guitar pick fell into the guitar, and I was like shaking this guitar frantically over my head, like, oh, where is it? And everyone was just kind of being like, okay, Aimee, calm down. Consensus thing. So anyway, I'm like, okay, sorry. And then I get to the scene, which is a kind of sad scene, but not that sad. But obviously, because I'm so worked up, I'm acting, with this quite famous actor, and I just burst into tears in the scene. And I think they're thinking, all right, this is part of the scene. But then I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't get the words out, to the point where it was like, we stopped it was recording, and we've stopped recording, and it was like, okay, are we okay? And I just couldn't stop. And eventually it was like, I remember the lovely casting director being like, "Oh, Aimee," and me being like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And yeah, so that was a pretty bad one.
You got the part then, yeah?
Safe to say I did not get the part. I did not get the part. However, I have met that writer quite recently, and he actually remembers the audition as less terrible than I do. So you never know as well.
Well, that's positive then. That's good. That's good.
Yes.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now. Thank you to all our guests, and thank you to Public Eye. As always, thank you to our sponsor, Betterhelp.